To Brett. What's up, everybody? Glad you're here at Breaking Brains, Building Hearts number 9, which is awesome. And we are kicking off, getting started. Super excited to see you guys, hang out with you some. Welcome.
What's up, fellas?
I'm just waiting for Netflix to call us, man. You know, it's good content, baby.
Right around the corner.
Well, we are one step down a 50-step pathway. You never know. Never know.
Chris, I like the artwork. You got a new design in the room.
Oh, yeah. So it's got a weird story to it. I for me, I'm so motivated by story, and there's an ancient story about water getting turned into wine, and that's a creative project thing that I'm working on, and I could say more about it, but then everybody would go, "I'm out of here now." Because
so
it is
much
a little,
for Netflix.
Yeah, it's a little off brand. I mean, Joe Rogan, Spotify bought Joe Rogan's podcast, and it's been interesting to see some of the episodes they're not carrying over because, he tends to have this range of content matter. So this is not like that, but a little bit like that as far as risky off brand. But anyway, so it relates to that project, but I asked my daughter to paint a scene from something that represented like a first century moment where wine is being poured out. Because for me, the simple part of the small moments when it feels, hey, this is water, where might the wine emerge? Where might it turn into wine? You never know. Keeps me at the edge of my seat.
It's cool.
Since we're talking about breaking brains, right? So I guess the breaking brain question for me is, how does that apply today? Like, how would you think about applying that question or, that challenge to what we deal with today?
Yeah. Well, the context of it is this celebration, and we want to enhance celebration. Wine can be used to escape, to cope, or enhance celebration. And there's an edge that I want to live at of gratitude and awe and wonder. So my wife, I feel something towards her that, like, she's asking something and I feel irritated, or I feel taxed by something from one of my children, or I feel concerned or afraid or foolish with something with the business. Because in my world, the movie playing in my head, which is false, it's the insecurity of my identity, people are watching me, waiting for me to fail. And if it's not amazing, they're like, oh, see, any of the bigness or smallness of that, how could this moment flip? How could this moment be something that, with my wife, expands my ability to cast a vision, or to be more tuned into her and realize she's different than me, and she might invite me into a moment of growth? Or where I'm taxed with something with my child, it expands and grows a skill in me or an awareness. Or the places that I feel foolish are the places that I'm probably inspiring other people to have courage. Because if that fool can do it, so yeah, it's the idea of the flip. This was going this way. What if it goes this way? Dude, I could geek out on that forever. Breaking brains, building hearts.
I'm interested in the talking about wine, where it can be used to numb out or escape, but also used to enhance celebration. Like, there's so many things in life that are that, right? It could be used for good or for evil.
Right on.
So many things that are, maybe permissible for us, but not beneficial for us. And then how we use them and our motives behind them really change the essence of what that thing is.
So, yeah, for you, a question, or just saying that you've seen that play out? And
just seeing that play out, and yeah, just tee it up for you to talk more on that, because I know that's something that you've spent a lot of time on.
Tons. Jimmy, you're about to say something too.
Well, that's a challenge that we deal with all the time, because we talk about, when we talk about leadership, or we talk about sales leadership, or we just talk about being a good human being, right? Almost everything we teach can be used for good or for evil, right? So for me, it all comes down to the question is, how do you decide, and how do you make that decision? And when we're coaching folks, it's always about the why, right? So what's the intent? What are you trying to achieve? So can I use a tool for good, or can I use it for evil? What's the why behind the reason we're learning it? What's the why behind the reason we're using it? And that comes back to this idea of vulnerability, authenticity, transparency. Are we showing up to be helpful? Are we showing up to be a multiplier, a growth multiplier? Are we showing up to be to create leverage, or are we showing up to feed, as Chris was saying, a level of insecurity, right? Which is a lot of the discourse that's happening today out in public, right? It's all about feeding that insecurity.
It's the starvation of the ego, so that you can actually hear what it's wanting, and then flip it is like the externality of everything we're seeing in the politics. It's that run amok. But here's the thought for you, Jimmy. I want to ask about this. I totally agree with you on the impact to community and the why of what we would engage in, to reference what Brett was saying, that much of life is a gray choice. There are a few black and whites, but much of life is a gray choice. Is it right for me? It may not be right for you. Would you, and I'm curious if you'd agree or disagree with this, have space for practices in your life that are gray, some would say bad or good depending on context, just for the pure pleasure of how they make you feel?
Well, wine is a great example for me, man. So yes. And so what has helped me is there are lots of gaps and flaws in just my ability to conceive of things and remember things. I mean, my kids joke all the time about my poor memory. And that bad memory, the poor memory is good for some things because it makes me very resilient. Like I forget how bad it was or how much it hurt, or I forget how bad I felt. And so I'm resilient, but it also means I don't remember a lot of things that my family does. I have to depend on them to remember. But this idea, so what I do is I create simple whys for me to attach myself to that help guide my decisions. So to answer your question, for me, health is paramount. So that's my why for everything. But health is not just physical, it's mental, it's financial, it runs amok. So let's think about just the health of my body. For me, it's physical and it's mental. So do I enjoy vino? Did I go out and buy a URL, morevino.life, just last week? Yes. Do I have, gatherings on my calendar for enjoying some wine with my buddies? Absolutely. Do I have wine in my basement? I sure do. And it's at the right temperature and all that stuff. But wine, you could say, is alcohol, is a poison, right? But in moderation, what is it? In moderation, can it be something that feeds my mental health? The other thing that I've learned is that, this idea, and this is just through coaching, in order for us to do something, it has to be in our best interest. We have to believe it's in our best interest. And that's how most human beings believe or operate, right? We do things that we believe are in our best interest. So the other why for me is I want to make sure what's in my best interest doesn't harm or keep someone else from doing what's in their best interest. And the best case, be additive. So those are two whys that I use to kind of center my life and make the decisions I make and the actions that I take more just easier to do. And it also reduces a lot of stress for me. I don't have to wonder and worry or sweat decisions.
Yeah. I resonate with all that. I so value at the core level of this, and Brett, if this brings up anything from Site Shift Recharge that you want to comment on, it's fine with me, but I so value the core or kernel of this, that oftentimes there are things we can do that allow us a complete release and let down physiologically to set everything down and get into that state of deep recovery where we hold nothing, We're not burdened, we're not stressed, we're not tired. Or we may be tired, but we're resting. And that could be, you know, after I finish a big creative project, I could binge watch a show, and I'm not going to feel bad about that. You know, you could use alcohol as a hard transition from a stress day to trying to recover, and that can build a lot of negative patterns. I also could be sitting on the patio on a weekend and 4 o'clock, and I'm just easing into that moment of laying it all down, and it becomes, this was the word I almost used, and I couldn't believe it popped in my head and heart. So I'm going to say it, but I am filtering it as I say
We won't
it.
judge you, man. We won't judge you. It's safe.
It becomes sacramental. And I don't mean that specifically tied to any specific religion or outlook or no ideology. It's just like, it's the awe and the wonder. It's cultivating this presence. And yeah, so with what you were saying, Brett, you know, that pretty much almost anything short of harming another human being can be enjoyed. And it's really powerful, but it masters you when the habituation of it isn't done thoughtfully, attentively. You know, we are playing with fire, which is why ancient societies for thousands of years understood that. You know, you could only go to the Oracle at Delphi once a year, whatever it was. You know, they knew that these things are, and so you've got to, you know, hold that in your head and heart. It's the power that you, that others pre-scientific awareness would have superstitiously attached magical power to, that we now can't explain, but we can still use them. And then even as simple as the nap, you know, the power of just laying it all down to recover. I've found that most people aren't indulgent enough in the things that center them so they can engage and serve. Instead, they're serving tirelessly, not getting that renewal from the indulgence. Thus, we indulge.
The painting. I want to back up to the question you asked Jimmy. My brain's still on that. Like, would you partake in something just because it makes you feel good? I'm challenged by that, because for me, self-discipline is the antidote to everything, right? When I first graduated college, I was working 3 part-time jobs. I was getting my master's degree, and I was living in the back of a barbershop. We were in a small cornfield community. I didn't really have a bunch of friends or community there. And it was like laser focus, just improve yourself. And I had broken down my life in 5 categories. And I said, if I'm going to do something in one of these categories at all times. And that's how I was going to improve. And it was like supercharged, you know, self-growth moment. But there was no space of just do this because it feels good. Just do this because you like it. And I wonder if we crowd that out sometimes, where like, when is it okay just to do something just because it feels good, or because I like it, or because it makes me happy.
Can I ask you a question, Brett?
Yeah.
So one might be listening and one might say,
One might.
weren't you doing? Is it true that those 5 things represented things that made you feel good? You know, or do we want to do we want to really define what Chris said as an indulgence? You know, or I mean, were you indulging? I mean, did you build a life that allowed you to indulge in the 5 things that were really important to you? And are we asking you to kind of think about whether you did something that was fun that we would think, or society would think, is an indulgence or something fun?
Yeah, I would guess, I'd challenge myself and say I probably didn't give myself space to indulge in things that would have just been enjoyable, just community or relationships, or, you know, I don't know, whatever it might be. You know, my self-discipline probably crowded out some things that could have been destructive to me, which is a good thing. But there's also crowded out things that may have been beneficial for me if I'd used them properly. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting question. Like, how much space do you give yourself to just indulge? Just do something because it feels good. And is that okay?
That for me, and I love the different perspectives the three of us bring and what it brings out. Because I'm like, oh, I wish I could take some of this and do a thing I was doing earlier and incorporate some of this. But all of this for me is why it's so huge with even the painting and how the moment flips. Because, you know, all of us are driven, the three of us. I mean, I can remember being, 21 and like studying Greek because I wanted to learn, I want to be the best speaker I can be. Everything is filtered through this vision I've got to materialize and make a reality. But, even us talking about this, sitting on the deck of this house that we had built, this was like when I was 22, staying up till 2 a.m. on a Saturday night when I should have gone to bed, but listening to music because I felt this vibe and I felt this connection. And my wife and I would go on long drives early in our marriage, and it was just such a cool way to like see the country and talk and be together. And I think for me, it's like and I did read a book around that time about desire, and I was starting to think about if I can learn to follow the desire that's in me, and it's not coming, and I'm checking the motive and the why of it, like Jimmy was talking about. So I'm doing it with awareness. Even if I don't know exactly where this is taking me, it's going to flip into something that, and so like, I will reach a moment where I'm like, you know what? I feel like farting around on the internet and being distracted for a while. That's what I feel like doing. My motive is to kind of give my brain a rest from really wrestling or thinking about deep strategic things. The number of times that then I playing around and it connects a dot and I don't have time to flesh it out, but I just go save it in a document. Right. And it is a creepy, weird thing. No, I don't like the word creepy. It's an eerie, weird thing because I'm like, holy cow, like that is the thing that I needed for that idea. How in the world would I have ever found this? The happenstance that had to have occurred, that I would have come across this bit of information. So I think there's a lot to be said for, I think a lot of society that doesn't have a vision that's materialized. They're not checking their why. But, the other side of that, that's learning to dance with that muse, however it shows up.
Ooh, love it. Love it.
The biggest thing I took from that, I'm sorry, Jimmy.
No, I'm sorry. I was gonna connect that back to you, Brett, and it's an experience that I've had as well. And I'll let you do your thing. The connection I was gonna make is the indulgence. Imagine the indulgence of spending your day the way you want to spend it. Right? That's that old saying, if you enjoy what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Well, the implication of that is what if the work you did was work that you loved doing? What if by virtue of, following that passion, you are indulging yourself in what Chris said, the desire. And that's why I went back, Brett, to your example. What I loved about the story you told is, yeah, maybe you didn't let loose as much. Thinking back, maybe you could have let loose more and broken outside of your box of 5, but you were indulging in and developing and living the life that you wanted to. You weren't the classical, I have to work to make money. I have to live in this cubicle every day. I have to not get the vitamin D. I mean, you empowered yourself to design the life. And that in and of itself could be an indulgence that a lot of folks don't recognize or take advantage of.
I think what's coming up to me, the common theme as we explore this is one, motive, like why you do it, but secondly, awareness, like being aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, the purpose behind it. I guess that's the biggest thing is living. And now I'm reflecting on our last episode about flow, but it's consciousness of what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And, what purpose or what meaning does it have? And then also finding unconsciousness where you just indulge and you enjoy. And So those things kind of go hand in hand, I guess.
And where is it taking me is a huge question for me. Like, if I do this now, where does this go? And
Mm-hmm.
there are things that society would call, generally at large society would say doesn't matter, that I've decided for me aren't good. I don't want to do those things. And there are other things that they would say, aren't helpful that I do. I mean, even I was thinking about this because with COVID, I've developed a few habits that weren't there that I enjoy. One of them is and I fix it in one or two dishes because I know the amount that I like. For whatever reason, this amount doesn't affect me from a sugar standpoint. Still sleep really good. But we do vegan ice cream in our house because we are a part of a weird cult religion that believes all animals are going to become gods and burn the earth. So no.
You wouldn't be surprised.
But we do vegan ice cream in our house, and so I have this little bit of vanilla vegan ice cream, and I put chocolate syrup on it, and I put peanut butter on it, and like I get every bite like the way I want, where it's like this cream filled peanut butter bite with chocolate. It's so good. Since middle of March, I've done that almost every night, and it's enjoyable, and I love it. And I like to watch a really funny show, a couple episodes, maybe a few, whatever. In fact, I need a good recommendation on a great funny show. But I'll do that, and man, I sleep better. I just feel a little bit of that set in, and that's the thing that I think it's not. People aren't paying attention to that awareness, like you said, the motive, the awareness. And then where is this taking me? Is this taking me somewhere I want to go? I have dietary practices during the day that allow for that practice at night, and this is what works for me. Doesn't mean it works for everybody, but I've probably had lunch maybe 20 to 25 times in the last 2 years. Before that, I had transitioned to just like protein bars at lunch. I love I feel the drag on my energy now if I eat during the day. I had heard a number of people talk about it. It seemed impossible. It seemed crazy. I phased into it. I took a ton of time with it. So anybody listening, you got to pay attention to these things. But my blood sugar is now so dialed in, and it's an amazing feeling. But I'm okay with like this composite picture. So I think not only is it, the motive and the what we're looking at with awareness, engaging it, where it's taking me. And I think that's the last thing for me that I think about is what's the composite picture here. I love action movies. Sometimes an action movie can get me too anxious. I don't need to start that movie at 9:00 because then I'm going to pass through my natural drift off moment, which happens around 10ish. And then it's 11:00 and I'm up too late and I'm anxious and, weird. At this point, my kids would be so bored. They would be like, what the freak, Dad? What's your weird problem? I used to not have to think about any of that 12 years ago. And then we hit our major financial extreme loss. And that just like that cracked something in me where I had a lack of awareness of how fragile things really are. I wouldn't put these words to it, but I felt invincible. And once that cracked in me, I've had to pay attention to a lot more stuff around nighttime routine. Yeah, my daughter made fun of me at the dinner table a few nights ago because I had eaten something and I was like, I'm gonna sleep so great because of what I eat. And she was like, you make your choices just to sleep great. I'm living to sleep great.
It's not bad, yeah.
But the composite picture is huge. And I think for a lot of people, what's happening when they're making what feels like an indulgent choice, when we're pulling the escape hatch because we're suffocated and overwhelmed, it's not about this composite picture. It's like, I just got to get through this. Well, that's when you start putting all that up together. And then you're like, whoa, I don't like who I am, or I don't like who I'm becoming. And I've had those. I mean,
It's not enough.
Yeah. Brett heard me share this on the recharge thing. 5 years ago to March and April. So right when COVID was hitting, I couldn't fall asleep without 2 Benadryls or 1 Benadryl and 2 beers. Like, it was a terrible habit I did for like a month. Terrible. Oh my gosh. I mean, I woke up and I could go through why I got to that point. I could go through what the effect was the next day. And we just had gone through a crazy out of nowhere hard circumstance. And yeah, you don't stop those things, you replace it, but it's the composite picture. And that's what I think a lot of people aren't looking at. You know, how does this fit within the flow of an overall trajectory of my day, my energy, you know, serotonin production, epinephrine, all those things. Nerd time.
Nerd time.
But
We
that
are the
would be the
weird
breaking
ones.
brains.
We are
Hey,
the
if we-
weird ones.
Yeah, that's right. If we built some hearts on this, what would be some things that you found? Be curious for you, Brett, and then we'll hear from you, Jimmy. But where you have taken small steps that felt kind of weird, but later you were like, "Yeah, that was good. It wasn't so bad. I can
Yeah.
dance."
Yeah. I think it's to stop judging yourself and stop judging others. I think that was the real encouraging thing for me. You know, probably within my 5 things to always be doing to grow myself. Along with that came judgment of others when they weren't doing those things. The people who stopped and had lunch in the park, like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. And so to be able to stop judging others, but first stop judging myself and relax a little bit and give yourself permission to enjoy, to indulge, and with purpose or intention, but also you're not falling behind. You're not losing because you're doing this. You're not hurting yourself to enjoy life a little bit. Again, with awareness of what you were just talking about, Chris, you know, what's the motive? What's the reason? Where is it taking me? And in the bigger context. But that was the big thing for me, was just to turn off that judgmental voice for myself and for others.
Dude, that's so good. It totally took me back to a memory, but I want to hear what you're going to say, Jimmy, and then I want to tell you all a weird memory.
I'm just curious for Brett, though. I mean, you know, how do you, I mean, making that decision's cool. How do you keep it up? Like, everybody slips, you know, have you found a way to, you know, keep you on the track, or have you identified challenges to operating that way, and strategies to help you kind of stay in the groove?
Yeah, it's what we came back to earlier. It's like constant awareness, testing motives, understanding, you know, I guess digging below the surface. Why are you doing this? Why are you making this decision? And then before I start beating myself up or beating others, I check myself. Like, why are you so upset with them? Or why are you so bothered by what they're doing? Probably says, what I've learned is what I'm bothered most about in others says something about me. It's something I don't like about myself. And so giving myself permission to relax, and knowing self-discipline isn't the antidote to every problem. And that just constantly living aware, living conscious and aware.
It's, you know, it's the awareness too, that sometimes looking back, we don't realize where we could be off or tricking ourselves. So, you know, that's the thing that I would want to emphasize for people. For myself, it's been huge to not only get in the moment awareness, but sometimes back looking awareness. And so college, you know, I fell, like fell, whatever, into a meditative practice that was so rich and rewarding and consuming. I went into my junior year where I did meditation contemplation, you know, a few days a week for a few hours, long periods. And it was awesome. And no doubt, I mean, the way my brain kind of segments into places, one of those is experimenting with practices and checking things out from a human potential standpoint. However, I remember sitting and doing that practice and looking out the window and seeing a couple people play. It was 2 friends of mine, and they were playing and flying a kite, and, you know, and I'm like, how can they be playing when you could be growing like this?
Exactly.
Years later, I can look back on that moment and see, was my motive good or bad? I don't know. In the moment, it was as pure as it could be. It was probably off some. If I could re-experience that moment now, it would probably be off. All that work together to make me who I am, it's fine. But I can look back on that and go, okay, I'm experiencing something rich and indulgent. I'm judging them for not doing the same thing, and how crazy it is for me to judge them when, maybe I needed to loosen up some and go fly a kite and go play with them and hang out with them.
And they were probably experiencing something rich and indulgent too.
Exactly. But at that time of life, my rhythm and flow that I enjoyed was deep study, deep practice, and then I'd go play basketball with my friends from Uzbekistan because they were kind of lonely, and I would invite them to play basketball. We'd go play basketball outdoors a couple hours twice a week. It was awesome. So much fun. But the practice, for me that was indulgent, exactly, they could have the same experience. And I think for a lot of people, they're not aware that there's so many things you can try. How do you know until you've tried it? How do you know? You don't. Jimmy, what's a practice that you've tried a couple of times? We talked about the float tank, I think last episode, that I'd experimented with some. Brett, what about you? Any weird ones?
Weird?
Safe enough.
I like building systems and processes that are simple that can keep me fulfilled. Right. So, meditation's a huge part of my life. I don't think I do it for the same reasons you do, necessarily to be exploring, but I do it to, create balance, a healthful balance for me. Work hard, play hard kind of thing. Work hard, play hard, and rest hard, right? In other words, put some effort and some time into resting, and meditation is a great way for me to rest. But when I'm getting from the conversation, I'm putting all this stuff together, and I'm really thinking about kind of how I operate. And we keep coming back to awareness. And for me, I think practices that create awareness for me, have been among the most valuable. Because I spent there and one of the great things about the three of us, we've all had different transitions in our lives, things that have pushed us into certain directions, right? You might call them crises or, learning moments. I spent 10 years with a life coach after my pivotal moment in my life. And what was interesting about that experience is that I would learn something like the importance of awareness, but then I'd have to learn all the hundreds of ways to apply that lesson, right? There's so many situations where awareness can be applied as a way to open a door or to create a opportunity to improve or to understand. So what's interesting is that I don't want people listening to think that, all you have to do is have awareness and it miraculously stays with you every day, every moment of your life, and that you will never do something without awareness, right? So the practice for me has been, the biggest thing I struggled with was vulnerability, being able to accept that, I wasn't perfect in all things to everyone, and that it was okay and safe for me to admit that. And that vulnerability led me to building a strategy to create awareness. So I empower all the people around me to keep me on track. And I use them to help me create awareness. And I had the experience today. I was confused by the behavior of a client, and I expressed my confusion, and there was a little frustration in that to my wife. And then she just said to me, well, maybe you can give them the same consideration that you give yourself when if change is imminent, but you're not ready, you might look really strange to somebody who thinks you should be changing, but you don't see it because you're not ready. Maybe they're not ready. I'm like, oh shit, thank you, sweetheart. And it wasn't like it wasn't like I felt like crap or I thanked her, gratuitously. It was thanks for the awareness, but I wouldn't have had that if I didn't create a relationship with her where I could just kind of express, emote, and then she felt comfortable with just kind of like dropping some knowledge on me. So, I think the folks listening, what we have to do is we have to move past, self-help memes and criticizing ourselves or kind of judging ourselves because we don't have these memes at our disposal all day, every day. Everything that we've talked about, Chris, from your deep focus on practice and Brett, to your, lifelong understanding of flow and competition and what it takes, and the work that I've done, it takes work. Pick something you want to master and go master it and find ways to make it part of your life, because nothing we've talked about is something you just read and do. There's a process of taking knowledge, applying it in your world, and then reapplying it to achieve that level of mastery. That's really what's required to get to a level where you can kind of sustain that health and growth, right?
So here's something that made me think of that I want to see what you guys think about it. I'll move it so it gets clear. It says awareness. Can you see that? And then it's
2 circles, right?
seeing and blindness. So I don't remember where I heard this, but every moment, there is no perfect enlightenment. There's no perfect awareness. In every moment, you are seeing and blind.
Right.
Science at any given moment, 50% of what they know is wrong, whatever that statistic is.
Right.
And so there are things we're convinced of scientifically that are going to look as whack as trying to drink cocaine to heal a cold, or, whatever all the things they've done that are so
Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that I think about awareness is if it needs to be more concrete, it's thoughts, feelings, and emotions and desires or drives. So the thing that I'm trying to cultivate awareness on is I want to notice the thoughts that are occurring, because that's the narration in my brain. It's this passive autopilot that most people are having guide them, that they're not zeroing in on that voice and what it's saying. Not that it's actively a voice, some people it is. And then I'm noticing, or I'm aware of thoughts and feelings, or feelings and emotions, what's rising up out of this. And then I'm noticing drives. Why is the impulse here? How I'm getting a lot of energy now. Why am I energized? Is this good or bad? And of course, there's no doubt stuff to add to that. But if that's helpful for people, I think there's a lot of people that use the word awareness, and it's the specific application that they've experienced, not realizing it's comprehensive. It looks different for different people, thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, and drives. But then also too, there's no perfect awareness. That's not going to happen. And I see that in some circles that get into the woo stuff. Like, you're going to hit this state of a perfect interior secret knowledge on the inside, and you're there.
That's what we all want, right? That's what human beings, they all want. That
we just want to keep turning water into wine.
Right.
If you were to leave people with something today, Brett, as a result of what we've jammed on, what would it be?
Just encouragement to keep going, to keep trying, to keep exploring. I like what you just said. Like, we're seeing and we're blind. I think, to live consciously and not just go through life numbed out, but to pay attention and learn in every situation, and then in a non-judgmental way saying, I see, but I can't see also. So appreciate what you can see, and then try to figure out what it is you can't see.
I love that. That's a great tension point. Appreciate what you can, figure out what you can't. What about you, Jimmy?
Yeah. The conversation has kind of led me to a realization that I have multiple times a day. This idea that a universal framework or way of thinking can apply to personal relationships, can apply to business. It can apply in multiple areas of your life. And I just completed the last 5 lessons or chapters of a 25 chapter program, which I was extremely relieved to do over the weekend. And one of the principles,
That's awesome.
it's business focused, but one of the principles is this idea of creating alignment, right? This idea of goals, plans, and scorecards in the context of how you might run a business or achieve a business objective. What's really interesting is the goal, the plan, the scorecard. Where do you want to be? Having this idea of a focus, right? Clarity of focus, and then the plan of this strategy. And then the scorecard, many people look at scorecards as a way to kind of beat someone else up, right? You said you were going to do this and you didn't, or the score is this, you failed, right? The healthy way of thinking about a score is these are the things that you're doing well. These are the things that you need development on, you need help with, right? Now you've created some awareness of where the gaps might be, that if you could fill those gaps would fulfill you and fulfill your life. So scorecards are a way to help you, right? To your point, Chris, get to where you want to be, the consequence that you're trying to achieve long-term in your life. So awareness can be a scary thing, right? It requires some vulnerability. To be aware of the things where you can improve might be scary, like it is for an employee at an office or a CEO of a company. But it's the only way, to your point, Brett, that we can be open to receiving the data, the information that can help us understand where we're succeeding and where we have more room to grow. Not where we're failing, where we have more room to grow. So awareness can come in many ways. For me, the best thing that I've been able to do is find multiple ways, multiple scorecards, multiple points of feedback for me to give me that data, not so I can feel like crap about myself because I'm failing, but so I can feel good about, now I know what I can invest in. Or I can say, you know what, it's not worth investing in. That's just something I'm going to have to accept that I'm mediocre at.
And that honest awareness of where we want to grow and where we don't. And, I would love to be able to throw it down on a guitar. I haven't paid the price or done the things, if I tried right now, I could become great, it'd be so far away. I'd be mediocre for a long time. Do I want to give up becoming great in other places? No, I have other things that mean more to me than that. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are honest about that. That's awesome. Well, mine would just be, check your motive on this. Check the composite picture like we've talked about, but find something that feels irresponsibly indulgent and give yourself to it and enjoy it. Because it is the irresponsible. What's that?
Without guilt.
Yeah, exactly. How you enjoy it as you go about doing it, because it is these moments that feel irresponsible and indulgent that we actually come back to know who we are. It's Charles Baudelaire, the French poet. Genius is the recovery of childhood at will with the skill of adulthood. And because I have the rational structure to build around the creative impulse, let's freaking go. Well, thanks for being here for Breaking Brains, Building Hearts, episode 9. You guys have a great one. Peace out, everybody.
See you guys.
Booyah. Meeting. I didn't stop the recording.